Now, I got to admit when I'm wrong. And I've overlooked the Carolina Panthers for way too long because this is a team in the NFC South who's building a monster. Now, I think the most simplistic way in which I can break down the Carolina Panthers starts off with Frank Reich's 5 characteristics of a great quarterback. Now, we all know we got our new guy, Bryce Young, and when he talked about these characteristics in specific, the first thing was your quarterback has to be the toughest guy on the team, both mentally and physically. I think Bryce Young can check that box. Number 2, that's footwork and being mechanically sound when in the pocket. When you're throwing the football, do your mechanics get off? Bryce Young is a guy who's always mechanically sound and has the footwork and mobility within the pocket. So that's another box that we can check off. Number 3, this is being accurate around the football field. That's intermediate to deep level passing and making the defense cover every blade of grass. Bryce Young can do that as well. And number 4, having the uncanny ability to make plays when on the field. When we need a play, when we're down and we're thinking that we're out, Bryce Young will be that guy who's going to make the play even when it looks like it can't be made. He checks that box. And number 5, this is what you want in any quarterback, but specifically for that franchise guy, having that X factor. Bryce Young also checks that box.
He checked every box that we had.
Where you going right here, man? You knew this was good?
Yeah, I had
This is like Steph Curry, man. This is like Steph Curry.
So when talking about these 5 characteristics that Frank Reich sees, and he saw those characteristics in Bryce Young, but I want to circle all of that back into saying these are characteristics in which I see being consistent with this football team in their process. Looking inside the den of how they went about the draft process and picking these guys, this is a team that was very aggressive, moving up from the number 9 pick to the number 1 overall pick, getting their franchise guy. And they were aggressive in free agency, and every little thing they did spoke to aggressiveness during this offseason. So we get started with the coaching staff, and they brought in some nice guys along with Frank Reich. I look at Thomas Brown. I look at Josh McCown, a guy who's played quarterback at this level. And I look at Sean Jefferson, Deuce Staley, another great running back, all of the little things in which they've done. And now I want to talk about the depth chart, some of the pieces that we have. Miles Sanders. Now, a lot of people say some different things about Miles Sanders, but what I look at is a very athletic back and a very explosive back in the right scheme, in which I think this is a scheme who's going to have a lot of wide zone implications based on the new offensive coordinator. I think he will be explosive, and I think he'll be productive in this scheme. We got to remember Chuba Hubbard, a guy who came on in the second half of the season, along with Deonta Foreman, who's no longer with us. Now, looking at the receiver core, Adam Thielen, another savvy veteran, not the same guy we saw alongside the first-year Justin Jefferson and the younger Stephon Diggs, but still a good guy in his own right who's going to help Bryce Young. Jonathan Mingo, I think one of the wild cards in this room, and another draft pick who we're expecting to do some of these same types of things, great after the catch, physical in his route tree, all of the things that we need on third down and to go get the football. And Terrace Marshall Jr., I think a guy who, when healthy, is a very explosive football player. I think about what he did at LSU when those teams were winning championships, and I think about what he's going to be able to do when healthy this year. I love it, and I think he has the most upside in this room now. The tight ends, very solid. Hayden Hurst, Ian Thomas, Tommy Trimble, who loves to get on the move and block. But when I look at the offensive line, I think we got some real dogs. Now, one thing we're going to have to answer, we got Austin Corbett, and we got Chandler Zavala. Right now, not able to physically practice. 2 guys we're going to have to look at and see when they get healthy. And I think during the course of the season, they will be healthy at a point in time. But we want to get those guard positions locked down. I like Brady Christensen on the left side. And looking at our center, our left and right tackle, very, very solid players. And Ike Mekwonu, a guy who's going to put a lot of people on notice this season, especially in the run game. And that's not even starting with the defense. Bringing in a lot of these Vic Fangio-like influences with Ejiro Evero, a great defensive coordinator who's going to do some special things. We saw what he did with the Denver Broncos, bringing in Dom Capers as a senior defensive assistant. I look at everything around here. D'Angelo Hall is also on this coaching staff. We remember him from Hard Knocks. And when I look at the depth chart for the defense, it's also a lot of talent. Sha Tuttle, a guy who came over. You lost Matthew Iodonis, put in Shy Tuttle, another solid rock on the interior of that defensive line. Derek Brown, a guy who had 40-plus pressures even with 1 sack. We know he's going to affect the quarterback even if he's not getting on the stat sheet, and he's dominant in the run game. I think of that same guy that I used to see at Auburn that was commanding double teams and still winning at the point of attack. So we know what we have there. Brian Burns, a guy who I think has shown very elite flashes, but we want to see more consistency at this point in his career. That's the next step for me and for him, and I think he can take it there. So that's something I'm watching this season. And I look at the guys we drafted. DJ Johnson, a young guy who we're adding to the pass rush, but also with the current pass rush of which we had, we still got Yetur Gross-Matos. We still got Marquise Haynes, guys who are looking to take another step. So you're probably wondering what I think about this linebacker core, and I just wanted to jump in and say that Shaq Thompson at age 29 is still playing high-level football. Does a lot of things for this team, especially in their coverage looks from the linebacker position. Frankie Louvu, a guy who came over from the Jets and really surprised a lot of people. I have a film breakdown on Frankie Louvu, so if you want to check that out, it will be in the end screen. The NFL's most underrated linebacker. And really behind that, I'm trying to see in something I'm watching in training camp, who's really that key depth piece? Will it be Cameron Grugier-Hill? Will it be Brandon Smith, an athletic linebacker out of Penn State who had some developing to do? Or will it be Chandler Wooten? Some of the things I'm looking at, but really I want to make an announcement. I will be attending Carolina Panthers training camp on August 4th, 5th, and 6th. So for all the new subscribers and new guys here, Carolina fans, check me out, and we can get out there and have a good time and interact. And don't even talk about the secondary, because when we talk about this secondary, it's scary hours. And I talked about Bryce Young and everything he's going to do for this team. But what about Dante Jackson? At this point now, a veteran. What about C.J. Henderson out of Florida, another guy who played solid for this team last year? He's getting another year. And J.C. Horn, flat out one of the top 10 corners in football, not getting the respect that I think he deserves just yet. But watch the tape and see it. And when I talk about this safety room, it's even more special when looking at it. Von Bell, new acquisition. Jeremy Chin, just one of those freakish athletic sub linebackers, dime backers, / strong safeties that a Gerald can play with in that secondary in the linebacker room. He's going to be special this season. And then I look at Xavier Woods. We know what he is in this room. And we still got Eric Rowe, another savvy veteran. Jamie Robinson, yet another guy who the front office and coaching staff were absolutely gushing over. And you know why? Because he didn't think he should have went where he went in the draft. So he has a chip on his shoulder. But it's all right, because he's yet another guy in a room full of dogs who all have something to prove. The Carolina Panthers are building a monster, and it starts with Bryce Young. It ends with Frank Reich. Time to buckle up and haunt the NFC at night.